The top stories: Prime Minister Abiy discusses key issues with U.S. Secretary of State Rubio. And CEO of CBE Capital, Zamarina Negatu, says the Ethiopian economy is growing fast in Africa due to its economic reform. Hello and welcome to EBC World, the voice of Pan-Africanism, with the news. I'm Tabitha John. Do stay with us. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed held a phone conversation with U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio and discussed key issues including stability in the Horn of Africa. The Prime Minister and the Secretary discussed the desire to strengthen the bilateral relationship around mutual priorities, including stability in the Horn of Africa. The Secretary reaffirmed U.S. support for a peaceful and prosperous Ethiopia. The Fichi Chambalala Festival, which marks the Sidama people's New Year, is being celebrated with enthusiasm in Soresa Gudumale. The local community and guests who have gathered from other places to attend the festival are present at the location to welcome and celebrate the Sidama New Year. The attendees are also presenting dances and performances, and they are expressing their good wishes for the new year, Fichi Chambalala, by saying Happy New Year. Local residents and elders are also offering blessings for the year to be one of the peace and prosperity. This year marks the 10th anniversary of Fichi Chambalala being registered as an intangible cultural heritage by the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, UNESCO. Welcome back. The renowned Lego brand has officially opened in Addis Ababa, marking a milestone for toy enthusiasts and educational play in Ethiopia. The store has been opened in partnership between Zion Business PLC and the Embassy of Denmark. The grand opening was attended by high-level dignitaries, including Denmark's ambassador to Ethiopia, Sun Kogstrup, and Ethiopia's Minister of Women and Social Affairs, Dr. Ergoge Tesfaye. Danish ambassador to Ethiopia, Sun Kogstrup, hails the occasion as a historic moment, emphasizing that the store represents more than just a retail outlet. Listen to this.
This store is also a symbol of the strong ties between Denmark and Ethiopia, as we're bringing a piece of Danish creativity and innovation to Addis Ababa and Ethiopia. Lego is a world-famous Danish brand. What started as a small family business in a small Danish town has grown into a global brand that inspires millions of children and adults all over the world. Lego has become more than just colorful bricks to play with. It represents creativity, learning, and innovation. And today, with the opening of the first Lego store in Ethiopia, this Danish legacy becomes part of Ethiopia's story.
Representative of Zion PLC, Jerusalem Ndala, emphasized that Lego is more than a toy. It is a tool that nurtures imagination and empowers young minds to dream, design, and build without limits.
The arrival of a Lego store in Ethiopia is a reflection of the growing trade and business relations between Ethiopia and Denmark. Both of our nations are actively working towards creating a more conducive environment for international business, and I'm confident that these efforts will boost trade and business relations between Ethiopia and Denmark. So with this store, we are not just opening the doors to a world of bricks, but also to new opportunities for cooperation, trade, and educational activities for children in Ethiopia.
Speaking on the occasion, Danish Ambassador Sun Kogstrup highlighted the opening of Ethiopia's first Lego store signifies the deepening of trade and business relations between the two countries.
The grand opening of Ethiopia's first Lego store. Today is more than just a launch of a store. It marks the beginning of a new chapter in creativity, learning, and playing for children and families across Ethiopia. Lego is not just a toy. It is a powerful tool that nurtures imagination, problem solving, innovation, and it empowers young minds to dream, design, and build without limits. We are deeply grateful for the support of His Excellency, the Ambassador, and the Ministry, who shared our vision of fostering creativity and education. This store is more than a retail space. It is a hub for learning, discovery, and engagement where children can
Attending the launch ceremony of the Lego Children's Playground store, Minister of Women and Social Affairs Ergugi Tesfaye emphasized that the Ethiopian government gives due attention to such initiatives, recognizing their crucial role in strengthening efforts to support children development and creativity. The State Minister of Finance, Eyob Takaling, held discussions with South Sudan Minister of Finance and Acting Minister of Petroleum, Marial Dongrin Ater, on ways of elevating economic cooperation. The two sides discussed strengthening bilateral economic cooperation, which benefits the neighboring countries' people in infrastructure, energy, connectivity, and related development endeavors that are crucial both to Ethiopia and South Sudan. Moreover, the officials discussed regional issues, focusing on regional peace and security, giving priority to sustainable peace, which is the foundation for lasting economic growth and development. And finally, the Chief Executive Officer of CBE Capital Investment Bank, Zamarina Nagatu, says Ethiopian economy is growing fast due to the economic reform made by the government over the last 5 years. The homegrown economic reform in agriculture, manufacturing, tourism, among others, is attributed to this remarkable growth despite domestic security problems, the COVID pandemic, and the Russia-Ukraine war. Shagao Yamato has the following report.
Ethiopia has been making various efforts to register remarkable economic growth over the past 5 years. The homegrown economic reform in various sectors has brought significant results in the overall economic growth of the country. Talking to EBC World, Chief Executive Officer of CVE Capital Investment Bank, Zamedene Nigatu, underscored that Ethiopian economy has seen significant economic growth despite domestic security problems and Russo-Ukraine war.
One word I always use to describe it is resilient. I think that's probably the best way to describe the Ethiopian economy over the last 5 years, despite all these challenges, to have grown by, according to the World IMF, about 6.5% on average. If you look at the last 5 years, the Ethiopian government has a bigger growth trajectory number. Like this year, for example, IMF is saying 6.4, Ethiopian government is saying 8+. Either way, these are very big numbers. In fact, to put it in perspective, of the 5 largest economies in Africa, Ethiopia, according to the IMF and the World Bank and other international sources, is the fastest growing economy.
The CEO lauded the homegrown economic reform initiative, which has brought significant results, which Nigatu called fundamentals of economic growth are agriculture, manufacturing, tourism, are among others.
The fundamentals of the Ethiopian economy, or what drives it, are still very attractive. What does that mean? What are the fundamentals? So if you look at agriculture, which is still a very significant component of the Ethiopian GDP, we have, by all accounts, currently cultivating about 20 million hectares. There are estimates that say Ethiopia has between 75 million to 100 million hectares of arable land. So we're only at 20 million. Imagine when we start moving to 30, 50, 70. I mean, this is untouched. And not only the size, but when we start mechanizing it, when we start modernizing agriculture, it has this huge transformation. We've seen it lately in the last few years. Transformation, for example, wheat production has increased very substantially, data that was provided by various sources, including the governments.
The macroeconomic reform introduced 6 months ago, which shifted state-led economic policy to privatization, will undoubtedly strive and sustain economic growth, the CEO added.
Beautiful, encouraging policy, which is the shift from a state-led economic model, which delivered in the early days, right? But now to a private sector-led, or at least where the private sector has a significant role. Okay, that is good. If we saw what happened in my role models for economic development, by the way, are the Asians, the Asian tigers. Yes, South Korea, China, Singapore, these countries. In our lifetime, they became wealthy. They were very poor countries, but they became very wealthy countries. And that's one of the reasons they did is they invested in their people. They gave their people to be creative. Look at China. Like in Ethiopia, in the first early days, China started about 40 years ago, just 40 years ago, 4 decades. They went from a communist system where the state owned everything to gradually allowing the private sector to thrive. Initially, the state-led companies were driving the growth, but later on you see companies like Alibaba, companies like Huawei, private companies that thrived. I think that's where we're migrating as well.
Nigatu further pointed out that the government shall continue supporting and creating conducive environment to private companies' involvement in the country.
You're watching EBC World. Here's a quick reminder of the stories making headlines. Prime Minister Abiy discusses key issues with U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio. And the CEO of CVE Capital, Zamedene Nigatu, says the Ethiopian economy is growing fast in Africa due to its economic reform. And that's all we had for now. I'm Tabitha John. Many thanks for watching. Goodbye for now.